The sky was dark, painted in shades of gray and black. Two moons hung low, casting faint light over the barren land. The air smelled strange, like burnt metal mixed with something sour. It was quiet, too quiet. Only the soft whistle of the wind broke the silence. In the middle of this alien world stood a single spaceship. Its surface was scratched and dented, proof that it had traveled far and fought hard. Near the ship, three humans stood close together. They looked small against the vast emptiness around them. Their faces were tense, their eyes scanning every shadow. None of them spoke. Each one carried their own thoughts, but they all shared the same question. Why had Earth sent only one ship? The leader of the group was a woman named Captain Alina Ross. She had short auburn hair and sharp green eyes. Her jumpsuit was dark blue, marked with patches showing her rank. Around her neck, she wore a pair of goggles that glowed faintly. She held a rifle loosely in her hands, ready to act if needed. Alina's mind raced. She knew how risky this mission was. One wrong move could mean disaster, not just for her team, but for everyone back home. Beside her knelt Marcus Kane, a man with rugged features and a strong build. His hands moved carefully over a glowing map projected onto the ground. The map showed the area around them, including strange symbols he didn't recognize. He frowned as he studied it. This doesn't make sense. He muttered under his breath. These readings, they're not natural. Behind them stood Leo Park, the youngest member of the team. His face was pale, and his fingers trembled slightly as he adjusted the straps on his backpack. Inside the bag was a device blinking red, its rhythmic flashes matching the beat of his heart. Leo felt out of place here. He wasn't a soldier or an explorer. He was just a technician, someone who fixed things. But now he was part of this dangerous mission, and the weight of it pressed heavily on him. Alina turned to look at her team. "Stay focused," she said firmly. Her voice cut through the tension like a knife. "We don't know what's out there, but we can't afford mistakes." Marcus nodded without looking up. Whatever these symbols mean, they're warning us about something big. Maybe bigger than we expected. Leo swallowed hard. Do you think we're alone?" he asked hesitantly. His voice wavered, betraying his fear. Alina gave him a reassuring smile, though her eyes remained serious. "For now, yes. But we won't stay that way for long. That's why we're here, to find answers." As they spoke, the wind picked up, carrying with it the sound of rustling leaves from nearby plants. The vegetation looked odd, almost skeletal, with thin branches reaching toward the sky. Shadows shifted in the distance, moving slowly but deliberately. Were they animals, or something else entirely? Alina raised her rifle slightly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She signaled to Marcus and Leo to stay alert. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. For now, they were Earth's only hope, and failure wasn't an option. The shadows in the distance grew darker, shifting and merging into shapes that were hard to make out. Alina tightened her grip on the rifle, her eyes narrowing as she tried to focus. The wind carried a low hum now, almost like a whisper. It was faint but persistent, sending chills down Leo's spine. He glanced nervously at Marcus, who was still crouched by the holographic map, his fingers moving quickly over the glowing symbols. "Something's coming," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I don't know what it is, but it's big, and it's fast." Alina didn't respond. She took a step forward, her boots crunching softly against the rocky ground. Her goggles flickered, adjusting to the dim light. Through the heads-up display, she could see heat signatures moving closer. They weren't human, or at least they didn't look human. The shapes were irregular, too large to be animals, and too fluid to be machines. Whatever they were closing in. Leo shuffled closer to Marcus, clutching the blinking device in his hands. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice trembling. Should we run?" "No," Alina said firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Running won't help us. We need to hold our ground and figure out what we're dealing with." Marcus stood up, brushing dirt off his knees. He grabbed a small scanner from his belt and pointed it toward the approaching shapes. The device beeped rapidly, its screen lighting up with data. "They're not giving off normal energy readings," he muttered. "It's like they're alive, but also mechanical. Some kind of hybrid." The first shadow emerged from the darkness, stopping just beyond the reach of the ship's glowing lights. It was tall, towering over them, with elongated limbs and a smooth metallic surface. Its head, if it could be called that, was featureless except for a single vertical slit that glowed faintly. Behind it, more shapes appeared, spreading out but staying silent. Alina raised her rifle, aiming carefully. "Stay calm," she said, though her heartbeat quickened. "Don't fire unless I say so." The creature tilted its head slightly, as if studying them. Then, without warning, it moved. It was impossibly fast, darting forward in a blur before stopping again just a few feet away. The other creatures followed suit, surrounding the group in a loose circle. Their movements were precise, almost choreographed. "What are they waiting for?" Leo whispered, his voice barely audible. His hands trembled so much that the device in his grip clicked loudly. The sound echoed through the silence, making everyone freeze. One of the creatures turned its head toward Leo, the glowing slit widening slightly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low, resonant sound filled the air. Not quite a growl, but not entirely mechanical either. It vibrated through the ground, making their legs feel unstable. "They're communicating," Marcus said suddenly, his eyes wide. "That noise, it's some kind of signal." Alina kept her aim steady, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Communicating about what?" she asked sharply. Before Marcus could answer, the creature closest to them stepped forward again. This time, it extended one long arm, pointing directly at the blinking device in Leo's hands. The red light pulsed faster, reacting to the creature's presence. "They want this," Leo said, his voice shaking. "Whatever it is, they know we have it." Alina hesitated for a moment, then lowered her rifle slightly. "Give it to them," she ordered, her voice firm. Slowly. Leo nodded, swallowing hard. He held the device out in front of him, his arms trembling. The creature reached out with its slender fingers, touching the device gently. As soon as contact was made, the red light flared brightly, bathing the area in an intense crimson glow. The creatures froze, their glowing slits dimming momentarily. Then, without warning, the lead creature retracted its hand and let out another deep, vibrating sound. The others responded in unison, turning away and retreating back into the shadows. Within seconds, they were gone, leaving the humans alone once again. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the wind and the faint beeping of the device in Leo's hands. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "Well," he said, exhaling slowly, "that was unexpected." Alina lowered her rifle completely, her expression unreadable. "Whatever just happened," she said, "it's not over. Not by a long shot." The group stood frozen, their breaths visible in the cold alien air. The creatures were gone, but the sense of unease lingered like a shadow over them. Leo stared at the blinking device in his hands, its red light now steady and calm. He felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Whatever those creatures had wanted, they seemed to have gotten it, or at least, they had seen enough to leave. Alina turned to Marcus, her voice low but urgent. "What just happened? What did that thing do when it touched the device?" Marcus shook his head, still trying to process what he had seen. "I don't know," he admitted, "but it wasn't random. That signal, it was deliberate, like they were scanning it, or maybe communicating with it." Leo looked up nervously. "You think this thing is alive?" he asked, holding the device out as if it might suddenly bite him. "It's possible," Marcus replied, his tone thoughtful. "Or maybe it's some kind of key, a tool, something important enough for them to come all the way here and take an interest." Alina frowned, glancing around at the empty horizon. The wind had picked up again, carrying with it the faint scent of sulfur. She didn't like this. Not one bit. "We need answers," she said firmly, "and we're not going to get them standing around. Let's get back to the ship and figure out what that thing is." The team moved quickly, their steps heavy with caution. As they approached the spaceship, its battered surface seemed even more foreboding under the dim light of the twin moons. The glowing blue lights along its hull pulsed softly, almost as if the ship itself was alive and breathing. Alina led the way, climbing the ramp into the main cabin while Marcus and Leo followed closely behind. Inside, the air was warmer, and the hum of the ship's systems provided a small sense of comfort. Marcus immediately set to work, pulling out a portable diagnostic console and connecting it to the device. Leo hovered nearby, watching anxiously as lines of data scrolled across the screen. Alina paced back and forth, her rifle still slung across her chest, her sharp eyes scanning every corner of the cabin. After a few minutes, Marcus leaned back, rubbing his temples. "This is complicated," he muttered. "It's not just a piece of tech. It's got layers, encryption, self-replicating code, even traces of organic material. This thing is part machine, part something else, something else." Alina repeated, stopping her pacing to look at him. "What does that mean?" "I don't know yet," Marcus admitted. "But whatever it is, it's advanced, way beyond anything we've seen before." Leo shifted uncomfortably. Do you think those creatures made it? Or maybe found it?" "It's possible," Marcus said slowly. "But why would they leave it alone after touching it? If it's so important, why didn't they take it?" Alina crossed her arms, her expression grim. Maybe they didn't need to take it. Maybe they already got what they wanted from it. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. If the creatures had accessed the device's information, then Earth might be in more danger than anyone realized, and the team was stranded on this alien world with no backup, no reinforcements, just a single damaged ship and a mysterious object that could spell doom for humanity. "We can't stay here," Alina said finally, breaking the silence. "We need to find a way to send a message back to Earth. Tell them what we found, and warn them." Marcus nodded, though his face was pale. "If we can even get a signal through," he added. "This planet's atmosphere is messing with our comms. It's like it's blocking us on purpose." Leo swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table. "What if we can't get through? What if we're stuck here?" Alina met his gaze, her green eyes steady despite the fear lurking beneath. "Then we fight," she said simply. "We fight to survive, to protect Earth, and to make sure whatever secret this thing holds doesn't fall into the wrong hands." Outside, the wind howled louder, rattling the ship's metal frame. The shadows beyond the windows seemed darker now, heavier. Somewhere in the distance, a low rumble echoed, a sound that wasn't quite natural and definitely not friendly. They weren't alone, and time was running out. The rumble outside grew louder, shaking the ship and making the glowing lights flicker. Alina clenched her fists, her jaw tight. She knew they couldn't stay inside forever. Sooner or later, whatever was out there would come closer, and they needed to be ready. Marcus was still working on the device, his fingers flying over the console. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, but frustration was creeping into his expression. "This isn't helping," he muttered under his breath. "It's like the thing is hiding something from us. Every time I think I'm close, it locks me out." Leo stood nearby, gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. "What happens if we can't figure it out?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if it's too advanced for us?" Alina glanced at him, her tone firm but not unkind. "Then we focus on what we can do. We're not giving up. Not now. Not ever." A sudden jolt rocked the ship, throwing everyone off balance. The sound of metal scraping against metal echoed through the cabin. Outside, something large and heavy was moving around the ship, circling it like a predator sizing up his prey. "They're back," Marcus said grimly, grabbing a handheld scanner. The device beeped rapidly, showing multiple heat signatures closing in. Alina grabbed her rifle and moved toward the ramp. "Stay here," she ordered, her voice leaving no room for argument. "I'll check it out." "No way," Marcus shot back, standing up. "We stick together. You said it yourself. We fight as a team." Leo hesitated, but then nodded. "He's right. We're stronger together." Alina hesitated for a moment, then gave a sharp nod. "Fine. But stay behind me and don't do anything reckless." The three of them crept down the ramp, weapons in hand. The wind whipped at their faces, carrying with it the smell of burnt earth. The creatures were there, surrounding the ship in a loose circle. Their glowing slits pulsed brighter this time, almost glaring at the humans. One of them stepped forward, taller than the others, its movements slow and deliberate. Alina raised her rifle, aiming carefully. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice loud and clear despite the tension in her chest. The creature tilted its head, as if studying her. Then, without warning, it extended one long arm, pointing not at the device, but at the ship itself. Its glowing slit widened, emitting a low hum that vibrated through the ground. "They're after the ship," Marcus whispered, his eyes wide. "But why? It's damage. It's not even fully functional." "Maybe it's not about the ship," Leo said suddenly, his voice trembling but urgent. "Maybe it's about where it came from. About Earth." Alina's heart sank. If these creatures wanted to know about Earth, then humanity might already be in danger. "We need to get out of here," she said sharply. Now. Before anyone could move, the lead creature let out a deep, resonant sound. The others responded in unison, stepping closer. The air felt thick, oppressive, like the calm before a storm. Marcus pointed his scanner at the creatures, trying to gather more data. "Their energy readings are spiking," he said quickly. "They're charging up. Something big is about to happen." "Back to the ship," Alina shouted, turning on her heel. The team sprinted up the ramp, the creatures' hum growing louder behind them. As soon as they were inside, Alina slammed the controls to seal a hatch. The ship shuddered violently as something massive slammed into its side. "We're trapped," Leo said, panic rising in his voice. "No, we're not," Alina replied, her voice steady. "Marcus, fire up the engines. Leo, give me that device. If they want it so badly, maybe we can use it." Marcus worked frantically at the control panel while Alina held the blinking device, examining it closely. The red light pulsed faster, reacting to the chaos outside. "I got an idea," she said, determination flashing in her eyes. "But it's risky." "Risky is better than dead," Marcus shot back, sweat dripping from his brow. Alina nodded. "Hold on tight then. This ride's about to get bumpy." With that, she activated the device, its glow intensifying until it filled the entire cabin. The ship's systems roared to life, and the creatures outside let out a deafening screech. For a moment, everything was chaos. Light, sound, and motion colliding in a storm of energy. And then, silence. When the light faded, the creatures were gone. The ship's engines hummed steadily, ready to take off. Alina looked at her team, her expression fierce but hopeful. "It's not over," she said, "but we just bought ourselves some time." Outside, the alien landscape stretched endlessly, empty once again. But somewhere in the distance, shadows stirred. Whatever battle awaited them next, they would face it together. The ship's engines roared as it lifted off the alien ground, shaking violently from the strain. Inside the cabin, Alina gripped the control panel tightly, her knuckles white. The blinking device sat in front of her, its red light pulsing steadily, almost like a heartbeat. Whatever she had done to activate it seemed to have worked. For now. But none of them knew how long they had before the creatures returned. Marcus was still at his station, monitoring the ship's systems. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his temples. "We're losing power," he said urgently, his voice tense. "The device is draining our energy faster than we can sustain." Leo sat in the corner, clutching his knees to his chest. His eyes darted between the device and the window, where the alien landscape was shrinking into the distance. "What happens if we run out of power?" he asked, his voice trembling. "We crash," Marcus replied bluntly, not looking up from the console. "And trust me, you don't want to know what happens after that." Alina ignored their fear, focusing on keeping the ship steady. "We'll figure it out," she said firmly. "For now, we need to get as far away from this planet as possible." The ship climbed higher, breaking through the thick atmosphere. The view outside shifted from jagged cliffs and strange vegetation to a vast expanse of stars. But even in space, they weren't safe. On the radar screen, small blips began to appear, dozens of them, moving quickly toward the ship. "They followed us," Marcus said, his voice low and grim. He pointed at the screen. "Those things, they're out here too." Alina's jaw tightened. She glanced at the device again, its red light glowing brighter now. "It's like they're drawn to it," she muttered. "Whatever this thing is, it's not just important, it's dangerous." Leo leaned forward, his hands shaking. "Can't we just throw it out? Get rid of it?" "No," Alina said sharply. "If those creatures want it so badly, it means it's valuable. And if it's valuable, we might be able to use it against them." Marcus nodded slowly, though his expression was skeptical. "Assuming we live long enough to figure out how." The ship shuddered as something hit its hull, a loud metallic clang that echoed through the cabin. More impacts followed, each one harder than the last. Outside, the creatures were swarming, their sleek forms glinting in the dim starlight. They moved with speed and precision, surrounding the ship completely. "We can't outrun them," Marcus said, his voice rising with panic. "They're too fast." Alina's mind raced. She looked at the device again, then at the controls. "There's one option," she said finally. "We overload the device, use its energy to create a burst, like an EMP. It might disable them long enough for us to escape." "But what about us?" Leo asked, his voice cracking. "Won't it hurt us too?" "It's risky," Alina admitted. "But staying here is suicide. We don't have a choice." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Do it," he said. "I'll recalibrate the shields to absorb some of the blast. It won't protect us completely, but it might give us a fighting chance." Alina didn't waste another second. She grabbed the device and connected it to the ship's main power core. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as she worked, her fingers moving quickly despite the chaos around them. Outside, the creatures grew more aggressive, slamming into the ship with increasing force. "Shields are up," Marcus shouted over the noise. "But they won't hold for long." "Almost there," Alina replied, her voice calm but urgent. Her eyes flicked to the countdown timer on the screen. 10 seconds. Leo closed his eyes, gripping the edges of his seat. "This is it," he whispered. "We're either dead or free." The ship shook violently as the first wave of energy surged through the device. A bright flash filled the cabin, blinding them all for a moment. Then came the sound, a deafening crack that rattled every bone in their bodies. The ship lurched forward, propelled by the force of the blast. When the light faded, the creatures were gone. The radar screen showed nothing but empty space. For the first time in hours, the team felt a flicker of hope. "Did it work?" Leo asked weakly, opening his eyes. "For now," Alina replied, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "But we're not out of this yet. That burst drained most of our power. We need to find somewhere safe to land, or we'll be floating out here forever." Marcus slumped back in his chair, letting out a shaky breath. "One step at a time," he said. "Let's focus on surviving today. Tomorrow can wait." As the ship drifted through the silence of space, the weight of their journey settled over them. They had escaped, for now, but the device still pulsed softly in the corner, its secrets far from unlocked. Somewhere out there, the creatures were regrouping. And next time, they wouldn't be so easy to stop. The ship drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space, its systems running on minimal power. The hum of the engines was faint, almost like a whisper, and the blinking device in the corner continued to pulse softly, its red light casting long shadows on the walls. Alina sat in the pilot's chair, her eyes fixed on the navigation screen. Her face was pale, but her expression remained determined. She knew they couldn't stay adrift forever. They needed shelter, supplies, and answers. Marcus leaned over the console, his fingers tapping furiously at the controls. "There's a planet not far from here," he said, pointing to a small dot on the radar. "It's uninhabited, or at least it shows no signs of intelligent life. We might be able to land there and repair the ship." Alina nodded slowly. "It's our best shot. Set a course." Leo, still shaken from their earlier encounter, sat quietly in the corner. His hands trembled as he stared at the blinking device. Do you think those things will follow us?" he asked hesitantly. "They might," Marcus replied, his tone grim. "But if we can disable the device completely, maybe they'll lose interest." "No," Alina said sharply, turning to face them. "We're not disabling it. Not yet. That thing is our only advantage. If we can figure out how to use it, we might stand a chance against them." Leo swallowed hard but didn't argue. He trusted Alina, even if her decision scared him. As the ship approached the planet, the view outside changed. The barren surface below was rocky and gray, with jagged mountains stretching across the horizon. There were no signs of water or vegetation, just endless stretches of desolation. It wasn't welcoming, but it was safe, for now. The landing was rough. The ship skidded across the uneven terrain, sparks flying as its hull scraped against the ground. When it finally came to a stop, the team sat in silence for a moment, catching their breath. "Let's get to work," Alina said, standing up and grabbing her rifle. "Marcus, check the ship's damage. Leo, gather whatever tools you can find. We don't have much time." Outside, the air was cold and thin, forcing them to wear oxygen masks. The wind howled around them, carrying fine dust that stung their skin. They moved quickly, setting up a perimeter around the ship. Marcus inspected the hull, frowning as he ran his hands over the dents and scratches. "This is worse than I thought," he muttered. "We'll need parts we don't have." "We'll make do," Alina replied firmly. "Find what you can salvage. Every second counts." Inside the ship, Leo worked nervously, sorting through crates of equipment. His hands shook as he held a wrench, tightening bolts and checking connections. He felt useless compared to Alina and Marcus, but he tried his best to keep up. Hours passed, and the repairs were slow. The blinking device sat untouched in the corner, its red light still glowing steadily. Alina glanced at it often, her mind racing with questions. What was it? Why did the creatures want it so badly? And most importantly, could it really save them, or would it destroy them? As night fell on the alien planet, the temperature dropped sharply. The team huddled inside the ship, wrapped in thin blankets. The silence outside was eerie, broken only by the occasional gust of wind. None of them spoke. They were too tired, too afraid of what lay ahead. Suddenly, the radar screen flickered to life. A single blip appeared, moving steadily toward their location. Alina's heart sank. "They're here," she whispered, grabbing her rifle. Marcus looked up, his face pale. How did they find us?" "It doesn't matter," Alina said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. "Get ready. This isn't over yet." The blip grew closer, and the sound of scraping metal echoed in the distance. Shadows moved outside the ship, surrounding them once again. The creatures had found them. And this time, they weren't leaving empty-handed. Alina tightened her grip on her rifle, her eyes narrowing. "Stay close," she said, her voice firm. "Whatever happens, we stick together." The ship shuddered as something heavy slammed into its side. The battle was about to begin. And this time, There was nowhere left to run. The ship rocked violently as the creatures outside attacked it with relentless force. Metal screeched against metal, and the sound of heavy impacts echoed through the cabin. Elena stood near the ramp, her rifle raised, her eyes sharp and focused. She could hear the creatures moving around them, fast, deliberate, and terrifyingly silent, except for the scraping noises they made. Marcus crouched by the control panel, trying to keep the ship's failing systems online. His hands moved quickly over the glowing screen, sweat dripping down his face. "Shields are almost gone," he shouted over the noise. "If they break through, we're done for." Leo clutched a small toolkit in one hand and the blinking device in the other. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to stay upright. He didn't want to be a burden, not now, not when everything depended on them working together. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice trembling. Elena glanced back at him, her expression fierce but calm. "We hold our ground," she said firmly. "Marcus, buy us some time. Leo, stay behind me." Outside, the shadows grew darker. One of the creatures stepped into view, its glowing slit pulsing brighter than before. It tilted its head, studying the ship as if deciding where to strike next. Then, without warning, it lunged forward, smashing into the hull with enough force to dent the metal. "They're testing us," Marcus muttered, his voice tight with panic. "They know we're weak." Elena fired a shot, aiming carefully at the creature's glowing slit. The bullet hit its mark, causing the light to flicker briefly. The creature staggered back, letting out a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the ground. But it didn't retreat. It simply paused, as if learning from the attack. "They're adapting," Elena said sharply. "We can't fight them like this. We need another plan." Leo's eyes darted to the blinking device in his hands. Its red light pulsed faster now, almost like it was reacting to the chaos outside. "What if?" he began hesitantly, stepping closer to Elena. "What if we use the device again, like before?" "No," Elena replied immediately. "We don't know what it will do or what it might cost us." "But we don't have a choice," Leo insisted, his voice rising despite his fear. "It stopped them last time. Maybe it can stop them again." Elena hesitated, glancing at the device. She knew Leo was right. They were running out of options, but using the device came with risks, ones they might not survive. Still, staying trapped inside the ship wasn't an option either. "Fine," she said finally, her tone firm. "But we do it my way." She turned to Marcus. "I need you to reroute all remaining power to the shields. Hold them off long enough for us to set this up." Marcus nodded, his fingers flying over the console. "I'll try, but I can't promise anything." Elena grabbed the device from Leo and connected it to the ship's mainframe. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as she worked, her movements quick and precise. Outside, the creatures grew more aggressive, slamming into the ship with increasing force. The hull groaned under the strain, and sparks flew from damaged panels. "We're losing power," Marcus shouted, his voice strained. "Hurry." "I'm almost there," Elena replied, her jaw tight. Her eyes flicked the countdown timer on the screen. 10 seconds. Leo stood nearby, clutching his toolkit tightly. "What happens after this?" he asked nervously. "We survive," Elena said simply, "or we don't." The device's red light flared brightly, filling the cabin with a blinding glow. A surge of energy rippled through the ship, shaking it violently. Outside, the creatures let out deafening screeches, their glowing slits dimming as the wave of energy washed over them. One by one, they fell back, retreating into the darkness. When the light faded, the ship was quiet. The radar showed no signs of movement. For a moment, the team just stared at each other, too stunned to speak. "It worked," Marcus whispered, breaking the silence. "They're gone." "For now," Elena added, her voice heavy with caution. She looked at the device, its red light now steady and calm. "But this isn't over. Not yet." Outside, the wind howled across the desolate planet, carrying with it the faint scent of burnt metal. Somewhere in the distance, shadows stirred. Whatever battle awaited them next, they would face it together. The silence inside the ship was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the damaged systems. Elena stood near the ramp, her rifle still in hand, her eyes scanning the darkness outside. The creatures had retreated, but she knew they weren't gone for good. They were waiting, watching. Marcus slumped into a chair, his face pale and streaked with sweat. He stared at the blinking device in the corner, its red light pulsing softly. "That thing saved us," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But at what cost? We're running on fumes now." Leo sat on the floor, his back against the wall, clutching his knees. His hands trembled, and his breathing was shallow. "What happens when they come back?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We can't keep doing this. Sooner or later, we'll run out of tricks." Elena turned to face them, her expression firm but kind. "We don't have time to think about that," she said. "Right now, we need to focus on fixing the ship. If we can get it running again, we might stand a chance." Marcus nodded slowly, forcing himself to stand. "I'll see what I can do," he muttered. "But it's not going to be easy. Half the systems are fried, and we don't have the parts to replace them." "Then we improvise," Elena replied sharply. "We've made it this far because we didn't give up. We're not starting now." As Marcus worked on the ship, Leo wandered over to the blinking device. He crouched down, staring at it intently. Its red light seemed brighter now, almost like it was calling to him. He reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing against its smooth surface. The moment he touched it, the light flared briefly, and a strange sensation shot through his arm. An electric pulse that made his head spin. "What are you doing?" Elena demanded, turning sharply toward him. Leo pulled his hand back quickly, startled. I don't know," he stammered. "It just reacted." Elena frowned, stepping closer. She studied the device carefully, her sharp eyes narrowing. "Be careful," she warned. "We don't know what it's capable of, or what it might do to us." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it the faint sound of movement. Shadows shifted in the distance, darker and more defined than before. Elena raised her rifle, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "They're regrouping," she said grimly. "And next time, they'll be smarter." Marcus looked up from the console, his face pale. "We can't fight them again. Not like this. We're too weak." "We won't have to," Elena replied firmly. "If we can get the ship airborne, we can outrun them, at least for a while." Hours passed as the team worked tirelessly. Marcus patched together damaged wires and rerouted power to the engines, his hands moving quickly despite his exhaustion. Leo helped where he could, fetching tools and holding flashlights. Elena kept watch, her rifle always within reach, her eyes never leaving the shadows outside. Finally, the ship's systems flickered back to life. The engines roared weakly, shaking the cabin. Marcus let out a shaky breath, leaning against the console. "It's not perfect," he admitted, "but it should hold long enough to get us off this rock." "Good," Elena said, her voice steady. "Let's move." As they prepared to leave, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The creatures emerged from the darkness, their glowing slits brighter and angrier than before. They moved faster this time, circling the ship like predators closing in for the kill. "They're here," Leo shouted, panic rising in his voice. Elena grabbed the blinking device and held it tightly. "Hold on," she yelled, activating it once more. A surge of energy rippled through the ship, shaking it violently. Outside, the creatures screeched in unison, their forms flickering as the wave of energy washed over them. The ship lifted off the ground, its engines straining under the weight of the damaged hull. The creatures clawed at the air, trying to follow, but the ship climbed higher, breaking free of their grasp. As they soared into space, the team sat in stunned silence. The blinking device pulsed softly in Elena's hands, its red light dimming slightly. For the first time in days, they felt a flicker of hope. But the hope was short-lived. On the radar screen, new blips appeared, dozens of them, moving quickly toward the ship. The creatures weren't done yet. Elena tightened her grip on the controls, her jaw set. "We're not out of this yet," she said firmly. "But we've faced worse, and we're still here." Together, they braced themselves for whatever came next. The journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. They would face it together. The ship hurtled through space, its damaged engines groaning under the strain. The radar screen showed the blips growing larger and closer with every passing second. Elena gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white. Her eyes darted between the screen and the blinking device in her lap. Its red light pulsed steadily, almost like it was alive. "They're gaining on us," Marcus said sharply, his voice tense as he monitored the readings. "They're faster than before." Leo sat hunched over in his seat, clutching the edges of his chair so hard his fingers ached. His mind raced with questions, but one thought kept repeating itself. Asterisk, this is it. This is how it ends, asterisk. Elena's jaw tightened. She wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. "We need more speed," she muttered, pushing the engines harder. The ship shuddered violently, sparks flying from the console. "We can't go any faster," Marcus shouted, his face pale. "If we push the engines too hard, they'll blow." "Then we find another way," Elena replied firmly. Her eyes flicked to the blinking device. It had saved them before. It might do it again. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked, noticing her gaze. "We use the device," she said. "But this time, we don't hold back. We overload it. Fully." Marcus froze, his expression grim. "That's suicide," he said. "It could tear the ship apart. Or worse." "It's our only shot," Elena shot back. "Either we take the risk, or we let them catch us." Leo looked up, his voice trembling. "What about Earth? If we survive this, we need to warn them. They need to know what's coming." Elena hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "You're right," she said. "Marcus, set up a transmission. Send everything we've recorded, the creatures, the device, everything. Even if we don't make it, someone needs to know." Marcus nodded quickly, his hands flying over the controls. "I'll do my best, but I can't guarantee it'll get through." "Just try," Elena said, her voice softened slightly. "And thank you for everything." As Marcus worked on the transmission, Elena turned to Leo. "Hold on tight," she said. "This is going to get rough." She connected the blinking device to the ship's main power core, rerouting all remaining energy into it. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as she worked, her movements quick and precise. Outside, the creatures closed in, their sleek forms glinting in the dim starlight. "Transmission sent," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "Now what?" "Now we fight," Elena replied, her tone fierce. "Together." The device's red light flared brightly, filling the cabin with a blinding glow. A surge of energy rippled through the ship, shaking it violently. The engines roared louder than ever, straining under the immense power. Outside, the creatures screeched in unison, their glowing slits dimming as the wave of energy engulfed them. One by one, the blips on the radar disappeared. The creatures were gone, but the ship was falling apart. Sparks flew from the console, and smoke filled the air. The hull groaned under the stress, threatening to break apart at any moment. "We're not going to make it," Leo whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, we are," Elena said firmly. "Hold on." With one final burst of energy, the ship broke free, soaring into open space. The blinking device went dark, its light fading completely. The cabin fell silent, except for the sound of the crew's labored breathing. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Marcus let out a shaky laugh. "We did it," he said, his voice hoarse. "We actually did it." Elena leaned back in her chair, exhaustion washing over her. "For now," she said quietly, But Earth needs to be ready. Whatever those things are, they're not done with us. Leo wiped his tears, a small smile forming on his lips. We survived, he said softly. Against all odds, we survived. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, their light faint but steady. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in days, the team felt a flicker of hope. Together, they had faced the impossible and lived to tell the tale. But somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, shadows stirred. The war wasn't over, it was only beginning. The ship drifted silently through the endless void of space, its damaged hull groaning softly with each passing second. The blinking device lay lifeless in the corner, its red light extinguished after the final surge of energy. The team sat in silence, their bodies weary but their minds racing. They had survived, for now, but the cost of their escape weighed heavily on them. Elena stared out the cracked viewport, her green eyes reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Her hands rested on the control panel, though there was little left to control. The engines were barely holding together, and the ship's systems flickered unpredictably. She knew they couldn't keep going like this much longer. They needed help, and fast. Marcus leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. His face was pale, his body drained from hours of frantic work. We're running on borrowed time, he muttered, opening his eyes to glance at the radar screen. If we don't find somewhere safe soon, we'll be dead in the water, or space, I guess. Leo sat quietly in the corner, clutching his knees to his chest. His mind replayed everything that had happened, the creatures, the device, the desperate fight to survive. He felt small, insignificant, yet somehow alive in a way he'd never been before. Do you think Earth got our message? He asked softly, breaking the silence. I hope so, Elena replied, her voice steady but tinged with doubt. But even if they did, it'll take time for anyone to reach us. Until then, we're on our own. Marcus nodded slowly, rubbing his temples. There's a nearby system, he said, pointing to a cluster of dots on the navigation screen. It's not ideal, but it might have resources, maybe even a way to repair the ship. Then that's where we're headed, Elena said firmly. Set a course. As Marcus worked on the controls, the ship shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. Sparks flew from the console, and the lights flickered dangerously. Leo let out a startled yelp, gripping the edge of his seat tightly. What was that? He asked, his voice trembling. The core's unstable, Marcus replied grimly, typing furiously to stabilize the systems. Using the device overloaded it. If we don't fix it soon, the whole ship could go. Elena clenched her fists, her jaw tightening. How long do we have? Hours, Marcus admitted. Maybe less. Then we don't waste a second, Elena said sharply. Marcus, focus on keeping the core stable. Leo, grab whatever tools you can find. We need to patch this thing up. Now. The team sprang into action, working quickly despite their exhaustion. Marcus stayed by the console, rerouting power and monitoring the core's readings. Leo scrambled through the ship, gathering tools and spare parts, his hand shaking but determined. Elena moved between them, offering guidance and encouragement, her presence steadying their nerves. Outside, the stars blurred as the ship pushed forward, limping toward the distant system. But the journey was far from smooth. The ship's systems continued to fail, one by one, forcing them to make difficult choices about what to prioritize. We're losing life support, Marcus said suddenly, his voice tense. If we don't fix it, we'll run out of air. Focus on the core first, Elena ordered. We can ration oxygen, but if the core goes, we're done. Leo nodded, handing Marcus a bundle of wires. Here, he said, his voice firmer than before. Use these. For a moment, the team worked in near silence, their movements synchronized despite the chaos around them. Slowly, the ship's systems began to stabilize. Not perfectly, but enough to keep them alive a little longer. Finally, the distant system came into view. A small rocky planet orbited a dim star, its surface barren, but promising. "That's our best shot," Marcus said, relief creeping into his voice. "Let's hope it has what we need." As the ship descended toward the planet, the crew braced themselves for whatever lay ahead. They had faced impossible odds and lived to tell the tale, but their journey was far from over. Together, they prepared to face the unknown once again, their bond stronger than ever. In the silence of space, the stars burned brightly, their light a reminder of hope and resilience. Whatever battles awaited them, they would face them together.